awesome.
Why are you reading your Bible?
I was just reading in 1 Peter where the dude who wrote it, be Peter? It says always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you for the reason for the hope you have.
Yeah.
I love that.
That is one of my life verses, actually. It's
Really?
realizing that we don't have to push always our way into a conversation. We don't have to be like necessarily someone else that we saw sometime and try to recreate what someone else does. But we can actually be ourselves, be praying for people, and be waiting for the opportunity. You know? And so how do we get ourselves in a position where we're just prepared and ready for any situation that presents itself? When the guy down the $2 shop says, "Why do you go to church?" I read a study that said psychologists have been mapping human conversation. They found that healthy human conversation,
Involves staying in your own lane.
we nearly just died. Healthy human conversation involves interactions at no longer than 30 seconds per person. So even like we've been conversing here, if I was to rub it on for longer than 30 seconds, we would watch on camera your attention drifting. And so we've been practicing, and I want to hear yours, Tash, but we've been practicing 30-second stories of being able to give an answer for the reason, the hope that's inside of us in 30-second chunks. Well, 3 chunks anyway. So in a conversation, someone all of a sudden says, "Why is it you believe in God?" What do you say?
Hang on, I have to reset. What do I say? Start. I would say I believe in God because when I was a kid growing up, my family was, I thought it was like every other family, but my dad had some stuff going down, and what that meant was that my house felt very unsafe. And I didn't have a lot of security as a child, and oh man, that's 30 seconds. Oh my gosh.
It's so easy, hey, to not find the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, do you want to give me a go? So for me, mine's different. And often people say, well, I don't really have a story because I grew up in church and I can't think of a time when I wasn't really a Christian, or my story is not that dramatic and all that kind of thing. Often when I've shared my story in training, things like that, a bunch of people go, "Oh, wow, well, I could do that. I just didn't think that mine was very special." But what God's done in our life is always special.
Yeah.
I went through a little period where I tried to maybe not over exaggerate the pieces of my story where I wasn't as connected to God as other times. But I found it didn't have any power, because it's actually God wanting us to share. In the sharing of our authentic story, I think that the power of God comes, So mine starts where I don't really know. Oh, you better start the clock.
Okay, better start the clock. Go.
I don't really know a time when I didn't know God. I grew up in going to church. I grew up in a Christian family, and I grew up often thinking of God and talking to Him as my close friend. But I suppose a big turning point for me was after I finished high school and just wanting to discover purpose for life. And as much as I knew about God, I wanted to experience the spiritual world up close and personal. So I took a van, went fruit picking, and 30 seconds is quick, eh?
It is quick, but it's awesome to be able to condense it down to that.
Yeah.
So that you're not controlling the conversation, but you're actually bringing them into it and I guess getting them to draw it out of you.
Yeah. So we're going to check in on one of them now. Who's this? Whose house is this?
We're going to go visit Nathan.
Awesome.
So yeah, let's go.
So I became a Christian in the summer of 2000. Basically what was happening was I just finished school. I went to school this week, and I had this romantic idea of what life should be like, and I was living that out. I was with the girls of my dreams, dancing in the hot summer's rain on the beach in surfer's paradise, and in that moment I realized I wasn't full. Something was wrong. This wasn't giving me the life I thought it would. And it got me asking questions about, there's got to be more to life than this. What's going on out there? What's happening? And I had a friend who was a Christian telling me his experience and his story. And a lot of the time it was just helping me just work out what I believed in. And from that point on, I made a very crazy prayer one night and said, God, if you're real, you got to show me that you're real. And 30 seconds later, I was knocked out on the bed. First time I slept in who knows how many years. Didn't have any nightmares. Always dreamt of the end of the world. Had insomnia. Didn't have insomnia that night as well if I wasn't sleeping. And that started this process. And a year after that moment, I decided I need more of this. I need discipleship. I need someone to talk to and help me and teach me. And that's where my Christian faith really kicked in. How did I find my story when I came to faith? I think one of the things that really helped me find my story when I was coming to faith was you just being honest. You don't have to be clever about it. You just got to tell them what happened. There's so many different ways of telling stories. If you sit down and you ask people what they did today, some people will start with what happened at the end, and then they'll go back and trace back how you got to the end. Some people start from the beginning and they leave you in suspense as to where you're going in that story. And I'm a trained actor, so I did a lot of study with storytelling, but I never really had to use those skills in terms of telling people, because I found that every single person needs to hear a different story. I remember Reinhard Bonnke saying, the way you preach Jesus to people is the Jesus that they will experience. If you preach Jesus as healer, they will experience Jesus as healer. If you preach Jesus or you preach God as Father, they will experience the Father's love. And so there's all these different parts of Jesus that people need to encounter. And it was just more a sense of being wise or having the discernment of what part of Jesus does this person need to hear about. And so then from that discernment, you pull from the stories that you have where, I was sick the other week, man, and I was going down. I had the worst flu. Dude, can I pray for you? Because, I just came out of it and I believe God can heal you too. Oh man, I used to have insomnia all the time. Man, I couldn't sleep. And so you're just telling people about, you're getting real with them. This is what used to happen. I couldn't sleep. I was tossing and turning, sweating every night, going through this. And then basically the way I got out of it was I prayed and Jesus healed me of insomnia. And so through all those experiences, you find your story. And I'm still finding the story. And it's even interesting now that a moment that I had 10 years ago, I'm actually able to see it differently now because of who I'm talking to. And there's no greater privilege, I think. I mean, I've managed to share in front of large groups, in front of hundreds and thousands of people my story, but the most fulfilling moments I've ever encountered are the one-on-one in a cafe or on the streets or at a Bible study or in a school. And you're just having this moment where you're talking to someone and you're relating to where they're at in that moment. And you just see something click in their eyes, just something just open up. If there's anything else that I would say about reaching out in evangelism, Christine Caine said this, and I think it just puts it in a nutshell, that 99% of my experiences with evangelism and reaching out and talking to people have really come down to purely and simply one word, one thing. It's just one thing. It's inconvenient. That's it. Everyone has the ability to get up off their butt, walk over somewhere and talk to someone. You do it all the time. But the only difference is that sometimes it's just really inconvenient. And we find so many excuses to just walk away out of it. And I've said that to people and they really struggle with the putting inconvenience with evangelism because it should be a hard thing and you're loving people. And yeah, totally. But I remember one time, particularly in the cafe, I was counting money at the end of the night, really wanted to go to bed. There was two girls having this conversation about their sex life that was just totally atrocious. And I had a moment where I could just continue counting money, get out of here and go to bed because I've got to open the shop next morning. Or I can stop what I'm doing, which means I'm probably going to stay here for another hour, But these girls really need to hear what I have to say. Obviously, I had some sort of rapport and relationship because they're my staff. And I basically said, girls, you're better than this. And I had a whole conversation with them about, how valuable they are and how much they're loved, and don't treat yourself like this, and you don't need to find love with these guys. They're blah, 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 blah. At the end of the night, I got to pray with them, and they were just in tears because they really felt a guy loved them for who they were. But that all came because I decided to be inconvenienced. And at the end of the day, I had food to eat that people don't get to eat normally, just like Jesus at the well. That's a food that only comes through stopping for the one.
Was raised in a conservative Christian family, which looked nice enough on the outside but was pretty dysfunctional and performance-ridden on the inside. Left the church and my faith at the age of 20, threw in the towel and sort of went, I can't do it anymore. Lived a life outside of the church, not relating to God in any way, shape or form for about 5 years. Made some dodgy lifestyle choices, ended up realising that they were dodgy, started getting myself healthy, got into counselling, etc. And then about a year after that point, I was at a conference and during worship, felt prompted to ask God, like, God, if you're really real, I want to know, I want to feel you. And I had a God encounter and still struggle to articulate what that was like. But yeah, felt warmth and light and acceptance and love. And I'd been told my entire life that he loved me. I'd never felt it prior to then. And from there, it's been a journey of building relationship with him, building friendship with him. There have been seasons where that has gone well and fast and it's felt comfortable and easy, and other seasons where it's slow and hard and tricky and disheartening and so forth. But yeah, since that point in time, there has never been a point in time where I've given up on that relationship or felt like it was a farce or anything the way I had done prior to that. This is who I am, and if I'm introducing people to myself, if they're looking to know who I am, this is integral, relevant parts of that. It helps give them a picture of who I am and how they can relate to me and how I can relate to them and so forth. Their response has typically been pretty good. They're surprised. Some of them are surprised, others are not. Most of them accept it quite readily because I am open and authentic about what I've experienced and where I am in the process at any given point in time. Yeah, they handle it just fine, really. Nobody's hurt or upset. How dare you have a faith? How silly are you? Nobody has that reaction, really.
Well, that was an amazing story. Now it's time to get everyone else to prepare, right? So what we'd love you to do in three easy steps is 1, take out your phone, 2, record your story. Work on it yourself, record your spiritual story, and then number 3, upload it to this Facebook group.
Right there, that one.
See you for the next episode, because what we actually want to start talking about after this is how do we enter those kind of situations when they don't present themselves? How do we launch into spiritual conversations in a naturally supernatural kind of way, but in a way that suits our Aussie culture here?